Welcome into Hockey Sense, everybody. We're coming at you a little bit earlier this week because of some travel situations going on. Brad Shaw coming up. I didn't even ask him about the Stanley Cup Final, so I apologize. Edmonton trailing the series 2-1. Lots of stuff to get into. I've got many questions for our viewers and our listeners today as well. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Sign your son or daughter up today for Little Blues. Get them introduced to the game of hockey and do it the right way. If you have, or if your son or daughter have never participated in any type of organized hockey, then listen up. Do it today with Little Blues. Ages 4 through 9, you get all your equipment too. So there's nothing better than going to a Little Blues skate. I say it all the time. My son, I bet you more than half his team started with the Little Blues program, including my own. So I've seen it firsthand. It's an unbelievable program. And get your son or daughter signed up today. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Just like Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Get that app. Don't sleep on the party goods. Don't sleep on that beer cooler, that walk-in beer cooler. It's going to get hot here in St. Louis. When it gets hot, there's only one place to be. That's inside that beer cooler. If you're not going to be at an ice rink, get inside the beer cooler. Best selection of beer, wine, and booze over there at Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Locally owned, Wallace family, flat out getting it done. Nobody does it better than the Wallace family. Taking St. Louis to the next level, one dirt cheap at a time. Blue Note Roofing, David Novak, flat out getting it done. 314-920-5713. I think he's going to join us in studio next week. Always great to have David in studio. We'll get his take on the Stanley Cup Final. We'll see where we're at when we get to next week, with Game 4 taking place on Thursday. You've got some of these 2-day breaks between games, so hopefully the series is still going on. I just want a 6 or 7 game series. But David Novak, roofing, siding, gutters, soffit fascia, whatever it is you're looking for, call him today. Let him take care of you. Get that free estimate, 314-920-5713 for David Novak over at Blue Note Roofing. All right, speaking of the Stanley Cup Final, Connor McDavid's taking a little bit of heat because he hasn't scored yet here in the Stanley Cup Final. Does have, I think, 5 assists or something like that. Something crazy. He's got 31 points in 19 games. So I can't be critical of Connor McDavid, but he hasn't scored. And you got Stephen A. Smith, who I don't go to for my hockey coverage. Let's make that clear, but I like Stephen A. I mean, he's entertaining. He is what he is. Obviously talks a lot about football and the NBA, and that's kind of, takes up 99% of his show that he does every day on ESPN. But, for those on the outside who are not necessarily watching every shift of the Stanley Cup Final, they're not paying attention to a defensive faceoff that someone may win, or breaking up a pass in the defensive end, or winning a battle along the wall. These guys, they look at the box score. And when you have the greatest player in the game, one of the greatest players in the history of the game, in Connor McDavid, who's doing things on the ice that we've never seen done before, with no goals in the first 3 games, should there be pressure? Should there be criticism that comes with that when you're the best player in the game and you're not scoring? I mean, it would be the equivalent of a guy like Patrick Mahomes just not getting it done in the playoffs, even though McDavid is getting it done in the playoffs. But, like in the Super Bowl, for example. And that's their equivalent of the Stanley Cup Final, even though in the NHL it's a 7-game series. In the NFL, we all know that it's a 1-game, winner take all. If Mahomes showed up in the Super Bowl and completed 40% of his passes and didn't throw any touchdowns and threw a couple of picks, he would take some heat. If Michael Jordan in a NBA final was putting up bricks and, shooting 20% from the field, he would take some heat. It would never happen with Jordan. I should have used LeBron as an example, because maybe that would happen with LeBron, I guess. I don't know. But, so these media guys who are working on the national level and don't pay attention to the NHL, but certainly are talking about it a little bit now because it is the Stanley Cup Final. And they look at the box score at the end of the game and they see Connor McDavid with a goose egg next to his name. No goals in the first 3 games. Is that good enough? And listen, I was on with Jeff Merrick and Johnny Lazarus today on the Daily Face-Off. We talked a lot about this. And I know that goal scorers are very streaky, and McDavid could have a hat trick in Game 4, and this is a completely mute conversation. But with that being said, is it fair criticism? I mean, can Edmonton win the Stanley Cup without McDavid scoring goals? I know he's a passer and he gets a lot of assists, but he's proven he can score. He only has 6 goals here in the playoffs, but he is a guy who is certainly capable of scoring more than that. Yeah, I just think it's interesting what the perception is on the outside from prominent media people. And I know goal scorers can get streaky and, they can go 5 games without a goal and then all of a sudden erupt and get 8 goals in 3 games. But this is not the time of year where you can afford your best player to be streaky. He's got to deliver. And when you're taking stupid penalties and being as undisciplined and irresponsible as Edmonton was in Game 3, then that's going to disrupt the rhythm for your best players who don't see the ice in penalty kill situations. I mean, McDavid's not touching the ice in a PK situation. Draisaitl's not, so they're not on the ice. I know a guy like Trent Frederick, he's been quiet here in the Stanley Cup Final. But again, doesn't kill penalties. It's not really his type of game. It's hard for these guys to get into a rhythm when you're in the box. Edmonton has got to be smarter. I thought that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a Stanley Cup Final. And I mean all around. It wasn't just the scoreboard. It was how they played, the meaningless stick infractions, how they acted towards the end of the game. I mean, we've seen teams who are losing scrumming up. I've got no issue with that. But like Corey Perry, who's a veteran guy who looks like he should be a Florida Panther, actually, the way that he plays, he'd probably be a better fit on the Panthers than he is with the Oilers, and he's proven to be a great fit with the Oilers. I mean, just slashing Mikkola in the back of the leg at the end of what is this doing? It does nothing. Jake Wallman squirting a water bottle at the opposing bench during a Stanley Cup Final game. Like, that is unlike anything I think I've ever seen. Well, what is he doing? You're squirting a water bottle at the Florida bench in a Stanley Cup Final game. Like, I would certainly hope that a veteran guy would get a hold of him and be like, dude, what do you act like you've been here before? It's a long series. Turn the page. Don't show your frustration. He got fined twice for the water bottle incident and then for the sucker punch there, if you want to call that, on Matthew Tkachuk. And listen, if the game was reversed and Florida was down 6-1, maybe they would have done the same thing. I'm not going to act like they're a bunch of choir boys. Come on now. We all know how they can be. But the way they handled themselves, getting under the skin of Edmonton, Edmonton's not going to intimidate the Florida Panthers. It's just not going to happen. Florida's not losing any sleep over it. They're not worried. They're not scared of what Edmonton might do. Edmonton needs to stay out of the box. Try to play 5-on-5. Draw your own penalties and then score on the power play. Because we all know they've got a power play that can certainly do it. Just looking at some text messages. Anyway, that's where we're at. I'm getting a text message here. So the Utah Mammoth, they've got like an $80 million practice facility that's going to be done by September 1st. This place looks unbelievable. I mean, I'm getting this text message sent to me by somebody with Utah. Wow, this must be the locker room. All these facilities are incredible. Local hockey news, Maryville University, they've gotten approval from Chesterfield, which is a municipality here in St. Louis, for a $5 million, we'll call it an addition, $5 million addition where they're going to add a practice sheet and locker rooms with the hopes of Maryville University going Division I within the next 3 years, joining Maryville University, or Lindenwood University, who has been Division I for the last couple of seasons. So there you go. Big news there with Maryville University. Can we have 2 Division I teams? I mean, why not? But Lindenwood would have a Division I team, and then now Maryville having a Division I team with a practice sheet addition going into their current facility there in Chesterfield. So congrats to them on that. And congrats to Lindenwood on the hiring of Keith Fisher, who's been now hired as head coach. I think that's a great hire. When you lose a guy like Bill Muckalt, who came from a big-time program, which I think it's important that you have people in charge here of the program at Lindenwood who come from bigger programs, who understand the support that you have to have, who understand how to recruit, who understand the landscape across junior hockey and have relationships across junior hockey, who have been on the recruiting trail for year after year after year. It's important to bring that to the program. And I think, Bill Muckalt, he brought a lot of that because of his years at Michigan. I can't fault him for leaving and going to Michigan Tech. He's getting a big increase in pay. I think he's making like $315,000 base at Michigan Tech, and then he'll get some bonuses that are built into the contract too. But obviously it worked out for him to come to Lindenwood because it helped him get his next head coaching job. He wasn't the head coach at Michigan, and now you bring Keith Fisher, who's worked at Penn State since they became a Division I team. He was at Princeton University prior to that, so he's been around for a long time. He coached as a head coach in the USHL, where he won some championships there with Omaha. So you bring a guy who just went to the Frozen Four, who's helped a program go from being a club team to all of a sudden a perennial power in NCAA hockey, and he was a big part of it as an associate head coach. I just think that it's a no-brainer to bring this guy in. Once I knew he was interested, and once I had talked to people with the university, it was clear that there was obvious interest in him. But my feeling was, hey, get this guy locked up ASAP, because I think this is the easiest transition. Lindenwood's losing their goaltender. They lost their assistant coach. So, Bill Muckalt obviously taking a couple of key pieces with him to Michigan Tech. But this is a solid replacement and a good hire by Jason Coomer. So big shout out to Lindenwood University. In terms of Blues news, listen, they're going to have 3 draft picks. Not a whole lot of draft picks going on. They're going to be in town. A lot of the teams are staying in their own individual cities versus going into Los Angeles, where the NHL draft will be held this year. I think next year it's going to change back to the old form where all the teams are going to congregate in one city. I hear that it's probably going to return to Vegas. They want to take it back to the Sphere. It was so successful having it there a year ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that take place. But this year, every team's going to stay in their home city. The Blues are going to roll out some announcements about a fan party. I believe they're having a draft party where fans can get involved, and we'll see how that plays out. We'll have some more information from Chris Zimmerman coming up next week on Hockey Sense. Looking forward to that conversation with Z. In terms of contract negotiations with like Philip Broberg, for example, who can agree to a contract extension this summer, he and Dylan Holloway. Same thing with the goaltender, Joel Hofer. I know people are talking about potential offer sheets from Hofer. I guess that could happen. It's always interesting, Doug Armstrong fleeced the Oilers so badly and the offer sheets that he signed Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway to last summer, that I just don't get the sense any teams out there are looking to do the Blues any favors right now, When it comes down to making trades, I think it's going to be a little more of a challenge maybe than it has been in the past to make some deals with certain teams, just because of the way Doug Armstrong has had so much success in wheeling and dealing. So we'll see what they do in free agency with Mikhail Granlund is a potential guy that you identify. I brought up Sam Bennett's name over and over, and now it's kind of becoming a theme and a storyline elsewhere. The hard part is that he would love to stay in Florida. He's got a big role there. It's not like he's looking for a bigger role or a different situation from a playing standpoint. His best friends are there. You'd have to pay him considerably more than what Florida's going to offer him to get him out of there because of the tax implications. I mean, if Florida offers him $10 million, say, or $9 million, or $9.5 million, say they offer him $9 million. I mean, another team's going to have to offer him, $12 million to basically pay him the same amount of dollars that he would be getting paid if he were to stay in Florida, just based on the tax differences. So I just don't know. I mean, I don't see St. Louis offering Sam Bennett $12 million a year. That's just not going to happen. I don't see them offering $10 million. But if they offered him $9.5 million and Florida's offering him $9 million, you're not leaving for $500,000. Plus, there's going to be so many other teams interested. But the Blues have a need for a number 2 center. You can look at John Tavares as another guy that maybe you'd identify. And these guys are going to have to want to come to St. Louis, so keep that in mind. Granlund's interesting. If Dallas can make some moves off of their current roster, and free up the necessary cap space or money to keep Granlund, I think that's what they would prefer to do. So we'll see how that plays out. Granlund was a player the Blues had interest in the past, and I know they would have interest in him once again this year. He had a really nice playoff, too. Scored some big goals. Just a good player. Trent Frederick's another one who I know people have talked about in the past. He's got a history, obviously, with Jim Montgomery. We know what he brings to the table from a physicality standpoint. If you were to lose Braden Shen, for example, you'd want to fill in with some of that toughness and some of that ability to do some of the extracurricular work. Frederick is certainly a guy who can do that. I don't know if he's 100% right now. You know, he had that high ankle sprain at the end of the season. I don't know how good he's feeling right now. But again, going to a new team, the way they utilize their forwards, how much their top guys play, I don't think it's a great fit for Frederick to stay in Edmonton beyond this season. I think he's capable of having a much bigger role than what he's seeing right now in Edmonton. And he'd probably have that here in St. Louis. He'd be rejuvenated. I'd have no issue if they signed Frederick here in St. Louis. But just as long as he can get back to 100%, and maybe he is right now, and he's just having a tough time finding his rhythm with all the penalties that have been taken. And I mean, how scarce the ice time is that's available because their top guys play so much. But a big fan of Frederick. I can tell you, Matthew Tkachuk, I've said this over and over, he may be 50% right now. He's still close to a point-per-game guy in the playoffs. It's amazing that even at less than 100%. Luke Cunning's a guy that he'll be looking for a home, thinking about all the St. Louis guys. It wasn't a great fit in Columbus, to be honest with you. I don't even know why they traded for him. If they knew that he probably wasn't going to be in the mix once they got their guys healthy, then I don't know if it made sense to make that deal. But he's probably looking at a 1-year deal for a guy like Cunning. And he can get back to being the player that he has been throughout the majority of his career prior to going to San Jose. But the Blues would love to add a right shot defenseman, I think. Second line center. I mean, Ekblad would be a great fit here as well. You got to get these guys to want to come here. I always say that. It's not like St. Louis is a destination for a lot of players, but when they start talking to other players, they realize how much guys love playing here, and it is a great place to play, not just to live, but it's a great place to play. You get a lot of attention. You get unbelievable support. They've got great facilities, supportive ownership, one of the most experienced general managers in the game, one of the best head coaches in the game. Great place to raise a family if you have kids. So why wouldn't a player have interest in coming here? So I would never rule it out if they certainly do all of their due diligence. Let's bring in Brad Shaw right after this. Brad Shaw, longtime assistant coach in the NHL, was the interim coach with Philly. He's been with Torts everywhere. I mean, he went to Columbus with Torts. He went to Vancouver with Torts. He went to Philly with Torts. I always like these assistant coaches who find the perfect fit. And it says a lot about that coach when a head coach, especially when it's an established head coach with a lot of credibility, which John Tortorella has, that he identifies certain people that he wants to bring with him. And Brad Shaw is that guy for John Tortorella. But prior to that, he was here for a long time. I mean, he was an assistant coach through 4 head coaches here in St. Louis, and they tried to keep him. They wanted to keep him when he left, too. But we go back down memory lane a little bit with his time here in St. Louis and also talk about a few of the stops that he's had recently. So we'll do that with Brad Shaw coming up very, very soon. I mentioned First Community. Check it out, man. First Community is the absolute. I mean, they've got branches everywhere, including the newest one in Sunset Hills, so be sure to check that out. Home equity loan promo. I always like talking about this because summer's here. So the warm, sunny days make you think about summer, entertaining with your friends. It's a great time to spruce up your back door or your outdoor space, your outdoor backyard space with a new look. Who wouldn't love to have that backyard fireplace, the built-in barbecue grill? I mean, it's like a new kitchen in your backyard. You can always do a master bath as well. Whatever it is, the project you're looking to do, that home equity line of credit, that's the way to go. You only advance what you need and when you need it. So you pay one monthly affordable payment. Then you can pay your balance off at any time with no prepayment penalty. But your line of credit stays open. It's incredible. Check out firstcommunity.com. Give them a call today and ask about this home equity loan promo. I mentioned the Little Blues program. Also, I do want to say First Community is hiring. If you're looking for a job, I know a lot of people out there are looking for work, hiring for everything from entry-level to management positions, equal opportunity employer, great benefits, including 11 paid holidays, paid vacations, 401k, pension plan, employee health and dental insurance provided at no cost to the employee. You got to be kidding me. Is there a better place to work than First Community? Maybe right here at Half Coast Studios would be the closest thing. Lordo's Diamonds, that's a great place to work. They've been around for 70 years. You got to be kidding me. Mike and Jimmy Lordo, the best in the business. So if you have a $500 budget or a $100,000 budget, no matter what it is, they will treat you exactly the same. Best customer service you'll find anywhere. Mike and Jimmy Lordo. Pat, everybody that's over there. Best people in the business. We love our friends over there with Lordo's Diamonds. Right there in the heart of Ladue. 314-432-8008. Go to lordosdiamonds.com. All right, Brad Shaw up next. First off, 25 years you've been coaching, Shawzy? Is that what it is? How long have you been coaching in the NHL?
Yeah, 26. Well, NHL 20 or 21, 26 overall.
You ever had options to be a head coach in the CHL? Did that ever interest you along your path of coaching to go be a college coach or a junior coach? Or what was it about the NHL game that has attracted you? Because you're such a great teacher and talked to so many of your players over the years. I feel like you're relatable to the 38-year-old just as much as you are to the 19-year-old kid coming into the league.
I think every time I was between jobs, that was one of the things I looked into. Sometimes there was some real genuine interest, and then other times not much going on. But no, I do think it's a strength of mine. And, I happen to play for one of the great junior coaches ever in Brian Kilray. So I know what a good coach can do for a young man at that age, and carries a lot of responsibility, but it's also something that's interested me, for sure.
All right. So how much do you have to adjust based on who you're coaching? I mean, you've got Quinn Hughes in Vancouver. It's a different animal than some of the other teams that you're coaching. I mean, you've got a big, long, Colton Parayko here in St. Louis. It's just you've had so many different types of players. And I'm curious, even going back 20 years versus now, how much has coaching changed? We talk about how the game has changed. What about coaching?
Well, the game has really changed. It's the frequency of the change has never been faster either. So you used to start with a penalty kill forecheck and a penalty kill in zone, kind of D zone, and you could start in September and you'd look pretty similar in March and April. Well, I just feel like we're consistently adapting, not chasing it, but trying to stay ahead of the power plays because I find they're changing so much. But I think that, I've at some point learned to sort of let the player find the solution. And so what's going to work for a Quinn Hughes is very different. I actually, I was giving him crap early on because he would turn his back when a guy would cut back. I'm like, Quinn, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, then I would watch him and he would win the race to the next puck battle and win the puck 9 times out of 10. And I'm like, that's never seen it before, but that used to be a rule for me. I don't think it's a rule anymore because his feet were so good that he knew if he could turn his back, he was going to win the next race or the next battle and get exactly what he wants, which is the puck and get going the other way. So, Colton's a very different guy. I've had, you talk about body shapes and different ages. I've had so many defensemen that I've enjoyed coaching, especially when they start figuring it out and they start taking steps on their own. That's what's really exciting as a coach. And I think I told Luke Hughes when I called him, I called those guys a few days ago to just introduce myself. And I said, with the good players like yourself, I'm probably going to learn as much. I watch you guys. I see how you find solutions, and then how much is that translatable to the next guy, and how much is it just individually for that one player. That's kind of a process that I've found that I do all the time, and so that's what's exciting because every time you go to a new team, some similarities, but are usually very different in the combination of what they're good at.
Listen, you've had the Quinn Hugheses. You see McCarr coming into the game. Lane Hudson, what he's doing. He gets named Calder, obviously, in Montreal. But you've had guys like Jay Bouwmeester in the past. He was an unbelievable skater, but they use their skating differently. Like, what separates these smaller guys that have come into the league recently versus a guy like Bouwmeester who you hardly ever saw him get beat one-on-one with speed. He could skate with anybody in the league.
Yeah, I think there's always been big radius and small radius guys. Jay Bouwmeester, Eric Brewer, big radius guys. The circles that they play on are pretty big. Going back to that era in St. Louis, Mike Weaver was a really small radius guy. And I think what you get now, like Quinn Hughes is a small radius guy, but he also has edge work that is, like you said, I've never seen it before. I've never seen a guy do that in transition side to side, north, south, forward, backward, and at a comfort level it's hard to fathom that they're that good. McCarr does the same thing with a little bit bigger package where his edges are fantastic, and so I think what we're getting now is I think we still have the big guys that are, going to cover more ice with each stride, and you're going to have the smaller guys like Lane Hudson and that are going to be a little bit more, not quite as much ice. But I think it's the edges now that how they can change direction and add deception to their game really sets them apart. McCarr's not quite a unicorn, but almost, where nobody's caught up to him yet. Normally when a guy comes in and he's a first-year player and he does something exceptional, the league catches up. It doesn't look like the league's caught up to Cale Makar yet, and that's a testament to just how unique he is and how good he is. There's some phenomenal skaters in the game, and it's only getting better. The skill level has never been higher, and it just seems to get higher every year. It doesn't mean they know how to play hockey when they get there to the NHL, but they certainly have a skill package that makes them dangerous offensively right away.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview. Apparently, Lane Hudson said that his dad would have him skate without laces in his skates when he was a kid to like strengthen his ankles and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe that's the secret, But these guys are great athletes as well. Hey, what was it like coaching Erik Johnson now, and obviously having him when he first came into the league as a first overall pick? I mean, that tells you how
Yeah.
long you've been around there, and how long
Yeah.
he's been
Yeah.
in how long, Johnson's been, EJ's been playing in the NHL too. It's amazing to have a guy when he's that young, and then to see him again, after he's a Stanley Cup winner and, a grizzled vet.
By going through that process, Cup and is still playing. It's incredible. So on with him, how he could make one of the worst mistakes you've ever seen and not have it affect his next shift, not have it affect his confidence. And I could never do that as a player. And I always admired it and sort of wondered about it when I saw it in players. And he showed it to the nth degree. And I think it's helped him. I think it's helped him, go through the ups and downs that come with playing as long as he's played. There's going to be good games and bad games, good months, good years, bad years, when you last that long. So really has become a man too, really has really matured. And it's, to know that you had a little bit of an impact on that, that's a real nice feeling. It's part of what we're doing. We're teaching hockey, but we're also teaching how to be a person and how to, live life the right way. So, trying to offer the right example. And I'll tell you, EJ is still a guy that I'd like to have on my team. He's not fast, he's not mobile, but he's effective. And he's not the prettiest practice player right now either. He likes to skate forward, doing rush coverage a lot, which would drive Torts crazy last year. But no, I enjoyed it. It's, I didn't really feel like it's come full circle, but it was certainly a different hockey player and a very different person than when I first saw him.
Yeah, I had a chance to see him this year too, man. He loved Torts, by the way.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
And that was in a private conversation. I think he would tell me if he felt differently. And I want to get into Torts, but I'm curious from your standpoint. I mean, you were in St. Louis for so long. I think 10 seasons, you said, and now you've been with several teams since then. Although you had a nice run there in Columbus, Coach, Werenski, some other great players. You guys had a good run, made the playoffs a bunch of times when you were in Columbus. But what's it like, though, spending as long as you did in St. Louis, being there for as long as you were, and then trying to find that spot where, to match that comfort level that you had here in St. Louis, and you can stick around and, go through multiple coaches and be a long-term guy as an assistant coach. You just don't see that very often, if at all.
Yeah, I was really fortunate there to last through 4 head coaches in St. Louis. A lot of times now, it seems like when the head coach goes, there's a little bit more carnage as well with the assistant coaches. It's hard. The 5 years in Columbus, I'm a real relationship-based coach. And I said this to Philly in my head coaching interview this year, that the Brad Shaw that you're going to get as a head coach this year would be the best version, because I have 3 years built-in relationship with majority of the guys. I have a year with Michkov, 3 years with the majority of the defense, and after working very closely with them, but even the forwards. And for me, I know that would make a big difference on knowing the players well enough to know when to keep them accountable and know when to maybe back off a little bit. I just think it would really help a coach that tends to do things the way I like to do them. The Columbus was, they let Torts go, and that was a little bit blindsided. I thought we were doing a pretty good job there. We made the playoffs the first 4 years, and then the 5th year we didn't. And that was the year that Panarin and Bobrovsky in the summer before that season voiced the concept that they weren't signing back. They were wanting to go to sort of bigger ponds. They wanted to get to a little bit bigger sort of cities and venues to play in. And so we kind of wrestled with that all year. It was a very disruptive factor in the locker room, on the ice, and, led to some less than stellar performance. But I was really disappointed about that one. And then all of a sudden, I was in 3 different places in 3 years. And I don't suggest that for anybody. It's a lot of moving. It's a lot of logistics on the stuff you don't see. And then on the hockey side, it's a real tough thing as well, because there's a lot of personalities to get to know. There's a lot of environments to kind of know where you fit in. There's just a lot of upheaval. And I was so blessed to be 10 years in St. Louis, and you know, 2 years later they win the cup, and I had, you know, I felt like there was a portion of it that I had a little bit of impact on. So that was good. I'm still chasing my first Stanley Cup. So I don't know how much that is a driver for me, but it certainly keeps me trying to get better and stay relevant and, you know, stay at it.
How tough was it though? I mean, being with the team as long as you were. I mean, I'm sure Hitch felt the same way. Ray Bennett was here for a long time, and John Davidson was here for a long time. And like you leave, and then the team wins the cup. I mean, can you just feel good for the guys that or is that really hard to watch, Shazi?
I think for the most part, it was great to watch. So, you know, Petro, I think I had for 8 years, David Backus, 9 years. You know, some of the other guys there, 4, 5, 6 years. So, I mean, it was, you know, I think I was so happy for those guys. I kind of kicked myself for leaving. You know, it was you know, as it turns out, when you look back, it was a mistake. You know, ego got in the way a little bit, and great lesson learned where uh, we love the city, love the organization, love the team, uh, you know, and just made a decision, you know, a little bit too much based on anger and ego, and have regretted it ever since. And, you know, that's, you know, to have that happen a couple of years later too, sort of hammers home the point. But, um, you know, I've learned, you know, I think I'm a little bit better, a little bit smarter. And, I think that's how we go through life. And, but at the end of the day, to watch guys that you've worked with for a long time hoist that cup in the air, I'm not sure there's anything better. That's a cool feeling. That's a great thing to witness. And you know, so happy for the guys that battled through it, you know, where you guys were in January, and then what Bennington did. I mean, it's a crazy story that you guys end up winning it. But no, it was bittersweet for sure. But I think for the individuals, the players, couldn't have been happier for them, and that was a great feeling.
I used to ask Joe Quinville all the time when he left here, because he had Pronger and McInnes, and he had Keith and Seabrook, another great defenseman. But how much would you refer to McInnes and Pronger when you're teaching other players? And like Petro's a guy who, you always knew he was really good, Shazi. But obviously, when he first came into the league, he got sent back a couple of years, and he wasn't just the number one guy right off the bat. It took him a little bit of time, and then obviously he became one of the best defensemen in the league. But then you really appreciate him even more when he leaves, and you realize how great of a player he is. Like, what do you appreciate the most about coaching him, and how much did you talk about Petro with other young defensemen? Like, you say, hey, watch how he uses his stick, watch how these guys play. Do you do that, or do you try not to do that?
I'll take a guy like I actually had Jamie Drysdale watch Duncan Keith a little bit, watch some shift of his, you know, different players, but uh, use their feet in similar ways in my mind. So I had him watch him. Forget who else I had him watch, kind of just to sort of see how their feet can be more effective. I don't know what impact it had, but for a guy like Petro, you know, we sent him back, I think mainly because we were, you know, a smaller budget team. We just didn't want to burn the year of free agency.
Yeah.
That first year he came in and we had a couple injuries, and he was arguably our top 2 or 3 defensemen. And we just didn't want to burn the year. So sent him back, you know, skinny kid at the time, you know, 4 or 5 years later, he's worked out. He's a pro. He's a serious athlete. He looks like a man. He's putting muscle on his body, and he was a different human being, you know, at 22 and 23 than at 18. And I think the what players get to do better as they get older is they get more efficient. And I think what Petro came equipped with was a mature player's efficiency in a lot of ways. And so he had somehow skipped some steps along that development curve. I'm not sure how, and made things that should have looked harder looked really easy. And I think most of my conversations I have with, the bona fide great young defensemen are, you're not getting faster, you're getting a little stronger, you're getting a heck of a lot smarter, and you're going to be incredibly more efficient. You're going to get to the same success level with less moving parts. You're going to shorten that the thought process so that it's almost instantaneous. And that's where these guys really start, getting into this sort of Lidstrom-like groove where everything looks easy. Everything looks like it's under control. And Petro's had that element in his game since he first showed up for me. And, he was an impressive young man. I met his dad for the first time. I said, you should be a proud guy. I don't know how you did it. I don't know what the secret is, but this guy's got it going on. We kept him. Andy Murray was the coach. He asked me, hey, is he in the hotel yet? Or is he, did he find a place? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I go out and check. And he goes, oh, I got a place. And I said, oh, who did your utilities? Oh, I did them. That's not that hard. What are you doing for food? Well, I go out with the guy sometimes. Sometimes I cook at home. It's not that hard. And this guy's like, I think he's 18, maybe 19. and we got other 19-year-olds that have trouble winding their watch, right? This guy was just light years ahead on and off the ice. And I think it's helped him. I think it's, he's been a fairly similar player his whole career, not a lot of adjustment in it. And I think that's given him the ability to really stand out, especially early on.
I got to ask you this, and we'll get into New Jersey, but the era of Blues hockey when you were here, and to see the career all these guys had. TJ Oshie just announces his retirement, and you were obviously there when he, came into the organization. I mean, one of the most popular players this city has ever seen, and he was just different. I mean, Oshie was Oshie. But David Perron playing over 1,000 games. You mentioned EJ and Perron winning a Stanley Cup, and just the player that he's turned into. Are you surprised with any of these guys that they've gone on to have the career that they had? Has anybody surprised you, or did you anticipate this from all of these guys that came in? And I mean, you had all these young guys coming in at the same time into the organization. Has anybody surprised you, or did you expect this from these guys?
I think, well, the guys you mentioned, I think TJ Oshie is the best all-around athlete I've coached.
Oh, no doubt.
Incredible athlete, incredible body awareness, balance. His reverse hits are incredible, legendary. And like I said to Luke Hughes, I learned a ton from TJ Oshie about penalty killing. I remember I wanted F1, the guy, to skate backwards. And he goes, well, can I skate forward doing the same thing? I said, yeah, I guess if you get the same job done. And so I watched him and I'm like, well, okay, that's a rule that I can throw out. That doesn't really make any sense because this guy's got an awareness behind him that allows him to turn his back, which is incredible. Different things. Like I think David Perron came in and, all the stuff about, Andy Murray spray painting his white skates black and all that stuff, everybody thought he had a little bit of an attitude. Well, I think what he brought to the game that is still with his game is he wins the vast majority of any puck that he's close to. He's got an absolute tenacity around the puck, and it showed up in practice, and it would piss guys off in practice. He would get guys, mad that he was trying so hard. Well, that trying so hard has led him to have that become a calling card, a big part of his game. And so, we're in Philly and we're looking for guys to help our power play the last couple of years. And David Perron, why don't we? Well, he's pretty old. I said, he's gonna help our power play. Just watch him. Watch what he does. Watch how many pucks he wins. Watch how smart that next play is. Watch how he puts the puck to an area where the next guy has a great chance to create offense. And he's got a a concept on offense. He's kind of like Corey Perry for me, kind of an ultra competitive guy that can also offer a high level of offense. And both of those things are what you're looking for in almost every player you're looking for. And so, Osh was a special guy. David, I'm not surprised. I think we knew pretty early on, how good these guys are going to be. I think EJ for me, probably it was good for him to leave St. Louis, and find just a different environment. And I think he made the best of it. And sometimes it does take, leaving one team. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times before the light bulb really comes on. But, EJ would go back on pucks and stop on it early on. Like, EJ, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm waiting for the guy to bounce off and then I'm going to skate away with the puck. I said, well, it's the NHL, EJ. There's lots of guys your size. And if they're not your size, they're going to work to a level, or they're going to be smarter than you to a level that they're going to take it from you anyway. So I said, you got to find a skating exit here. You got to keep your feet moving. And, that was as what we were talking about early on. That's how raw he was as a player. I mean, he was a gigantic human being at the time, and still his size creates room for him, allows him to pancake guys when he wants to. I think he's got a little bit less obvious competitive streak as well. I think it matters to him. I think he didn't show it maybe as much as Oshie and Perron did, and David Backes as well. It was overt. It was obvious that it mattered that much to them.
Yeah. I mean, he was, Tarasenko came in when you were here. I mean, all these guys that have gone on to have, these great careers. David Backes played, just under 1,000 games. Shattenkirk who came over in the EJ trade. I mean, you were great with Shatty. I mean, you turned him into a USA Olympian and an all-star player. And, he went on and had a great career. One guy, and I know these guys are still playing in the league and you're still coaching in the league, but I think it's okay to talk about it. He just had a hard time getting going here in St. Louis, didn't play much, and then he's gone on to be a very reliable player, is Ian Cole. Like, why do you think that didn't work for him here in St. Louis? Did you see something in him when you're coaching him? Because he couldn't get in the lineup consistently.
Yeah, I think early on, there was a little confusion because I've coached him 2 other times.
Yeah.
And I think early on there was a little bit too much emphasis on the offensive side of the game.
Got it.
And I think forcing that frustrated him, frustrated the coaches. I think he had something to prove with how high he was picked in the draft. And sometimes you can step outside of what you're really good at and what you're comfortable with without even really knowing it. And I think we talked about it, but I think it takes sometimes, going to that second and sometimes the third team, you realize that, okay, I'm not a first rounder here. There's no extra pressure here. I'm just going to go out and play hockey. What Ian Cole did from day one was be ultra aggressive, and it got him in trouble at times, but it also saved his bacon 80 to 90% of the time because he was decisive with it. And I say this to guys all the time, and I probably learned it from Ian. If you're decisive and you're wrong, 9 times out of 10, it works out anyway. Mm-hmm. The guy up in the stands doesn't even notice that it was the wrong read because you were so decisive and you played through your read. If you just do that, if you do that as a defenseman, and you can make mistakes on reads all over the ice in all different scenarios, but if you're decisive and you trust what you see and you play through it, you can still have a real high level of success. And so that's Ian probably taught me that as much as anybody, because there was all the other hiccups with him, but that aggressiveness and that not having to get him to instigate, that was hardwired in. And that has still been a part of how he has success. He's there, he's in your face, and you have to make a play before you have time or space or whatever else you're looking for. And that's given him a chance to be successful almost everywhere he's been.
So I've always got the sense that, I mean, you were almost like a head coach, but the way that you coached, it was almost like a football coaching staff. You had the head coach and then you had the defensive coordinator, who kind of like, and the head coach doesn't really mess with the defensive side of the ball. Like the coordinator kind of runs it, at least for an established coordinator in football. You know, you've interviewed for a couple of jobs. Did that lead to you leaving here? Do you think that frustration of not getting a head coaching job, because you said you kind of regret leaving here, so that obviously tells us it was your option to either stay or leave. Was that tough getting passed over and not getting a head coaching job? Did you ever have you ever come to grips with not being a head coach, or has that been difficult for a guy of your caliber?
Yeah, I mean, I tell the players, I tell my guys all the time, you can only control what you can control, and um, I've tried to get better, tried to continue to improve as a coach. I'm not your typical in your face. I didn't play that way. I was more of a thinking man's player. And I think I coach a similar way. And I think in most scenarios for head coaches, I'm a hard sell. It's hard to sell to the media um, how I'm going to coach the team. A little bit easier to sell a hard-nosed guy that was a tough guy when he played, and it just translates into that style of coaching. Um, I don't have any regrets. I think I've interviewed with 5 different teams now at various stages of my career. Um, I just I sometimes think that my personality is not what people envision for what they want as a head coach. Do I think I could do it? I thought I was the best guy for Philly. I thought um, for what they're going to do in the next couple of years, I thought for easy to give me a 2 or 3 year deal and work with the young guys, keep them going on the development path that we had already established with them, and see how good we could get. For me, I thought I was well set up to do a real good job with that. And, that was disappointing again, but again, I'm happy with my interview. I'm happy with my prep. I thought I hit some home runs in the interview, a couple triples, lots of extra base hits. Nothing, I don't know if I could have done better. And so at the end of the day, when the GM or the group of management make that decision, um, all I can do is the best job I can do with the players I'm given. And I've tried to keep that simple game plan all along. I think it's really helped me. I think it's helped me allow players to get better. I don't really feel like you said that I turned Shattenkirk into a player. Kevin Shattenkirk showed up in St. Louis as one of the greatest long passers I've ever seen on defense, ever. This guy used a 200-foot game offensively more than, he's kind of a Brian Rafalski sort of clone at that type of game. But he had an ability. He was another small radius guy that had incredible edges. Didn't have a ton of quickness, but he had incredible edges. I'd use him on the penalty kill because he could get pucks 200 feet. If that puck got on his stick on the penalty kill, I knew he was going to find a way to get it down the ice. There's a huge value in that for me. That's one of my main tenets of penalty kill is getting the puck 200 feet. And so he was a regular guy there for quite a while. I think a lot of these guys, if you feel like you've maybe shown them something new to do, I'm not sure it wasn't always there, latent or sort of hiding under the surface anyway. I think allowing them to experiment and allowing them to sort of layer on more assets and more facets of the game not only helps you as a team, but it helps them as a player. So it's a win-win. And, I've tried to approach it that way. And I mean, I still talk to Shaddy. I was trying to put my, your staff together if you're going to be the head guy in Philly. And I called him. I said, "Hey, do you have any interest in coaching? I know you're doing the PA right now." And he was pretty funny. He said, Well, I hope to start at the president level. I said, well, that's pretty ambitious. That's good for you. We
That's
all
such a
have our
chatty
ambitions.
answer.
Yeah. So that's, that'd be good if you can do that. I don't know how often that happens, but,
Yeah.
no, no, it's just been a part of the path is, maybe, the disappointment. I think every time you interview, you learn a little something about yourself. And so I think it helps you. And, so at the end of the day, you don't get it, but you're still a better coach, better person,
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. And even I said, they trade, EJ, you get a Shattenkirk. You trade Ian Cole, you get a Robert Bortuzzo, like real character guy too. So it's like, sometimes they work out for both sides too when you look at how these deals go down. Are you the only coach that's coached all three Hughes brothers now in the NHL?
I don't know. I haven't coached two of them yet, but, no, I'm excited. I learned a lot with Quinn, when I took over the defense when Bruce Boudreau took over from Travis Green. And, right away I asked Luke, I said, who do you want to play with? Who's your ideal partner here? And he said, Luke Shen. And I smiled and I said, well, that's a smart choice. He goes, well, for that reason, but I also know where he's going to be all the time. And, he goes, I like that. And so they actually became a real good pair, really played well together. But I'm excited about Luke and Jack. Luke's really taken some huge strides his first couple of years, and Jack hopefully rebounds from that, the shoulder, and takes off from where he was. He's become a phenomenal offensive, player.
When you coach with the Flyers and then the Devils, do you just stay in the same house or do you actually have to go find a new place?
I keep my same license plate. I was living in New Jersey because the Flyers, practice rinks in New Jersey. So keep the same driver's license and license plates. Otherwise, I got to go down the turnpike about an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay. Did you coach Sheldon Keefe? Is that true?
Yeah.
Where was
Yeah.
that?
And, early on in his career, yeah, I was still with Tampa's organization when he turned pro.
Okay. Okay. So what changes as an assistant coach? I'm curious what you think makes a great assistant coach. How do you sustain longevity as an assistant coach? Well, what's important? And when you go from team to team to team now, like you've done this, you've been coaching for so long, is it as big of an adjustment as we would think it is? Coaching new players, new organization, new uniform, new everything's new. How different is it from your vantage point?
Well, how to be a good coach, I think was the first part. I think an assistant coach's job is to find a way to help the team get better, help the head coach get better, help the players he's working with get better every day. Might be through video, might be through a comment, might be through a conversation. Might be, so many ways to touch these guys. I think for me, the way I coach, I really like to get to know my guys. Came home in St. Louis, one day, and I was all proud. I said to my wife, hey, so-and-so had a baby, one of the defensemen. And she said, oh, a boy or a girl? And I said, I don't know. I forgot to ask. And she was like, oh, that's awful. I thought you knew your guys. I thought you were, close with these guys. And she said, you should take them out, as a punishment, and you have to pay for dinner, and you shouldn't talk about anything about hockey. And so I started doing it in St. Louis. My first pair was Petrangelo and Bouwmeester. And we went out, and, Bo was a pretty quiet guy. And I found it amazing about half an hour into this dinner that he was a chatterbox, just couldn't stop talking about his family and his brother and his mom and dad and this, that, and everything else. And it actually was great. And so it's something that I've continued through. But, those relationships are vital for me. Travis Sanheim and I, after 3 years, when you're that linchpin of the defense core like he is in Philly and has been there, there's a lot of communication back and forth. I know within 3-4 shifts whether Travis is going to have a good game or a bad game, or it might take him a period and a half to get going. there's that level of knowledge that I like to have with my guys. That's it takes a while. You have to go through it. You have to see them on the ice. You have to see their reactions to things that are said to them, to reaction to things that happen to them on the ice, reaction to teammates doing a specific thing. All these things play into how to anticipate, when and where you can use these guys and where their game's going. And I think that whole process for me it takes a while. It's not a couple day thing. It's not a couple week thing. It's a couple months for sure. And, I'll feel way more comfortable by Christmas time with my guys. I'll have a way better idea of what to expect in most scenarios by that time. And up until then, I'm just racing to get that information. So it's a busy time for me, but that's how I coach. I'm a little bit different that way than maybe some other guys. I know what makes me good and I try and stick with it. And I'm hoping I can maybe be one of the missing factors that New Jersey needs. They're not far away. It's an exciting team to go to, really diverse defense core, fantastic goaltending, some real high end firepower up front too. So lots of things to be excited about there, but there is quite a learning curve the way that I approach things.
Yeah. This is my words, not yours. And maybe you'll even have Quinn Hughes there in a couple of years. He said they said all the brothers are going to play together. Maybe Brady Tkachuk will be there. You just never know what could happen down the road. Shazi, my words. Those are my words.
Yes.
Never know what's going to play out. Hey, last thing for you. Torts, did you know him before you guys started coaching together in Columbus? I just felt like from afar you guys had a really good relationship, really got along. You went to Vancouver with him. Went to Philly with him, obviously. So it's obvious that you guys have a lot of respect for each other. What should we know about this guy that maybe we don't know? And did you ever tell him, Torts, maybe you shouldn't have said that to the media and whatever, or did you just kind of support how he was away from the rink or away from, the coaching office?
Torts is the most misunderstood guy in the game. We actually interviewed when he was still in Tampa. And he tried to bring me in as an extra assistant back when the draft was in Vancouver. I can't remember what year that was. I think it's been there a couple times. But anyway, I think that was the year that I went to St. Louis. So I was called on July 1 by Larry Plow, and I had played for Larry in the minors. Larry called me, hey, we hired Mike Kitchen as head coach. We'd like to bring you on as an assistant coach. I've been chatting with him now since the draft. Oh, well, congratulations. Torts calls 5 minutes later. I got good news and bad news. And I'm like, my heart sinks. I go, well, what's the bad news? He goes, I can't hire you. Because I'm adding to the staff, I had to apply for that in January. We said goodbye. I called Larry. Hey, is job still there? He said, yes, it is. But he was in Columbus communicating and had a good where he lived. Very, very different guy than that persona that the media sees and the fans see. And, can he lose it quickly? Absolutely. As one might think. And I've never met a better human being, basically, in the game. There's not one that's a better human being. This guy has a genuine interest in your family, genuine interest in your life. 3 rescue horses, 5 rescue pit bulls, donates time and dollars to the nth degree to rescue foundations around the United States, has, unbeknownst heart for all of that. As I'm looking for my job this year, I have an agent, and Torts is making calls for me too. He's like my second agent. So he's calling me every other day. Hey, I called so-and-so, wonder what's going on there. And I said, and so he's the most genuine guy I've met. He is as black and white as you will ever meet. There is zero gray area. There are no mountains. They're all molehills. They never get a chance to be mountains. And there's a simplicity to how he coaches and a minimalized approach that I always thought that other coaches burnt them or lost the room. I feel like he burns himself out. So he kind of gets to the end of the rope a different way. And I saw it in Columbus and probably saw it a little bit again this year in Philly, where it was less than a stellar year as far as performance. And I think it weighed heavily on him. And but no, I think that there are times when you work with a guy like that I know sort of the temperature of his mood, where he's going to be receptive to an idea or to a contrary opinion. And so I would try and time those the right way, or, it would get tossed out right away. Sometimes if I felt it was worthwhile, I'd come around and revisit it, from a different point of view. But you learn to, I learned to be fairly influential. And I think the one thing that was disappointing for me when he was let go in Philly was that I didn't recognize it sooner and help him. And it's always easier when it's over and you're like, oh yeah, he was probably a little too hot. The temperature was probably a little too hot. And why didn't I see that? Like, what's wrong? I'm normally better than that. And so, there's a culpability there, feel like not only were you part of the staff, but part of my job with Torts was to sort of, not have him yell at players on the ice. He got into it with Ovechkin once in the playoffs and they were screaming at each other, Torts from the bench and Ovi's on the ice. And the Torts comes over when it's done. He goes, hey, Shazi, he goes, don't let that happen again. You see me screaming at a guy, you tell me to shut the F up. And I said, that's easier said than done. I said, exactly. Can I duck too? And it always feels like there's a right or a left coming right after that. But, that was part of the sort of the genius and how he got what he got from his teams. And I think that, we're all different in how we feel like we get the best out of our players. And I really enjoyed my almost 8 years together with him. And it was, the one thing I missed, I'm a collaborative coach, and Torts isn't very collaborative. And I would say that's the one thing that I missed coaching with him relative to other guys, but otherwise an absolute gem of a person. And I consider him one of my best friends in the game.
Yeah, I've heard that from so many people, actually. So many of the players we've had on, Cam and I on our podcast, whatever, speak so highly of him, too. Not many have had much negative to say about him. So, Shazi, thank you for doing this, man. I appreciate it. And, congrats on the next chapter for you in New Jersey. We'll see you during the course of the season. And keep up everything you're doing. I mean, it's like you go to team to team to team, but you know what? Like, and not that you bounced around your whole career, because you haven't, because you were here for 10 years, but think about the ability to impact all these different players that you wouldn't have met if you just stay in one city, So you've gotten to coach all these different players, a lot of great players who you've been able to impact. So a lot of positive has come out of it. So all the best in New Jersey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's, sometimes it's out of your hands where you're going to be. And, I've been blessed. I've never considered myself an NHL coach. I'm a hockey coach, lucky enough to work in the NHL. You get to work with the best players day in and day out. It's a real privilege, and I try not to lose sight of that, and have to pinch myself once in a while to make sure I remember that and keep working at it to stay relevant and stay employable. And hopefully one day I can raise that silver chalice and get the ultimate prize. But up until then, I'm going to keep trying my best to make these guys as good as I can, as fast as I can.
How's your skating? Are you still getting around the ice like you used to here in St. Louis? I mean, flying
around?
Not
bad, yeah. I still love going out early, just with the sweatsuit on and passing and shooting. Yeah, there's nothing better.
No, I know. All right, all the best. Thanks for doing this. Say hi to the family, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Brad Shaw. Always great to catch up with him. These guys that have been around the league, they've got story after story after story. I love the Alexander Ovechkin story with him and Torts going at it. So much great stuff coming from Brad Shaw, so we certainly appreciate that. First Community, again, brings us hockey sense each and every week. I mentioned how they're hiring, so apply today, First Community. Blue Note Roofing, 314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. He's going to be in studio with us next week. We look forward to that. Ask him about the great situation that's happening with all the roofing and the siding and the gutters and the soffit and the fascia. If you suffered storm damage, no better place to turn to than Blue Note Roofing. Of course, Lordo's Diamonds. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download the app today and find the Dirt Cheap nearest you. Don't sleep on their party supplies. All right, that's it for this edition of Hockey Sense. Jamal Mayer's, by the way, on assignment this week. His segments are always brought to you by our friends over at Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Find the location nearest you, and we'll talk to Jamal Mayer's back on the show next week. We look forward to that. He's got hockey camp. He's doing the camp. He's got so much stuff going on right now. So Jamal Mayer is unavailable this week on Hockey Sense. All right, from Maddie, everybody affiliated with our show here at Half Coast Studios, I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We thank Brad Shaw, and we thank you for the flexibility this week. We'll be back at our regularly scheduled time next Friday as we continue on all year round with Hockey Sense. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.